So Jim Montgomery, I think this season, even though that game ended in heartbreaking fashion, he showed himself well. He did a good job for a guy who just got fired.
Yeah. It's an expected bounce back for him, I guess, in the regular season. He's still going to prove himself in the postseason. It feels like he kind of gets, I don't know, deer in the headlights is the right term, but they could have used a timeout last night. They could have used a timeout in the third period when it looks like the walls are caving in on them. They were outshot tremendously over the final, the overtimes in the third period. And yeah, sure, like Winnipeg chasing the game had something to do with that, but you got to do something, right? Like Winnipeg is only they're down to 5D.
Yeah,
They
but
were
maybe that's
using
why you don't call timeout, is because they're down
yeah,
to 5D, and
yeah, but
and you have the advantage there, and you're trying to wear. There were defensemen after the first overtime been on the ice, close to 40 minutes.
Fred made the point that when you watch college hockey, it's a much slower game than the National Hockey League, but that's what it looked like in overtime.
Yeah, the first
Everyone
I didn't see the second
downshifted.
overtime, but Ty, like the first overtime, it was funny because like everyone was moving slow. Like you could
oh
tell
yeah.
fatigue had been setting in. And maybe you're right. I mean, maybe there was something Montgomery could have done. I mean, the Blues had a chance to win in that first overtime. There's a point from a shot 5 feet point blank range that they can't get in. But maybe
Well,
Montgomery. Go ahead.
I just think that like Binnington was making a ton of saves.
Yeah.
In that overtime, and he's clearly proven that he's one of the best pressure goalies in the sport. Whether you like him or not, whether you think he's overrated or not, like when the pressure's on, he's been phenomenal, right? And so I think at a certain point you got to do something to try to get your team going, to try to create some more offense. And I just kind of kept waiting for that moment, kept waiting for that. Okay, like what's he gonna do here? Is he gonna adjust? What's gonna happen? And just didn't feel like it happened. And so that's something that yes, Montgomery recovered well in terms of getting them there. They should have made the playoffs. They're not a great team, I understand, but like in that moment, Game 7, like that I kept waiting for an adjustment there versus simply thinking that you're going to win because the Jets are missing Scheifele and Josh Morrissey and out of gas, so to speak. So I that's my only complaint about Jim Montgomery in that Game 7.
All right. Well, certainly, I'm sure Blues fans aren't happy, but look, they got that cup. They already won a cup with a vastly inferior team to the one they were playing in the finals. So I don't feel so bad for St. Louis. Now they can not go to the Cardinal games, and and that will all eat itself because they need Gate to get players, and when they don't get Gate because they're not winning, they can't get players, and it will just keep repeating itself.
Yeah.
All right, Ty. All right, so the draft lottery is tonight. Where are the Bruins? What are the chances? Where could they land? Can you take us through the machinations?
Yeah, so they entered tonight with the fifth best odds of winning the number one overall pick. But don't get too excited. It's under 9% in terms of that winning number one. It's I believe it's about 8.5%. They could also move up to number two at 8.5%. It's very unlikely that they will get three or four, because if somebody moves up, then whoever has one or two will move down. So 1, 2, 5, 6, or 7. That's basically what you're looking at tonight. They could drop down 2 spots. They cannot drop down more than 2 spots, though. So they will be picking 7th overall at the absolute worst. Obviously, you hope you remain in that top 5. There's less uncertainty, so to speak. There's less potentially reaching for somebody that you might not be in love with. If you're at 5 or if you're 1 or 2, it's very easy. But you don't want to get to 7 because 7 can be a little weird depending on how the board falls. You might be in a weird spot there. So they got a decent chance. They would have had slightly better odds had they not earned a point in the final game of the regular season, which is very annoying. But here we are for the Boston Bruins.
Well, look, it could be the Patriots where they had a quarterback who's not even on the team anymore, could try go crazy, and they could have rebuilt the organization in one offseason. Yes, John.
What is the depth? I assume the Bruins are looking to draft a forward or a center here, this high in the first round. What does the depth of that look like this year?
Well, it all depends what kind of player you're looking for, right? Like, because I think they're going to go center. So you have Michael Misa, you have James Hagens from BC, you have Anton Frondell, you have Caleb De Noye. So you have some guys there Yeah, Roger McQueen, who is injured. Like, I would probably try to get a center. James Hagens is a guy that most people around here are going to know because he played at BC. I would not draft him if I'm the Bruins, if only because I don't think the Bruins would know how to properly develop that kind of guy. He's
Why?
5'10". He's
go ahead.
5'10". He's 175 pounds. He's a center, and every time the Bruins draft a small speed skill guy, they spend years trying to make them not a small speed skill guy. So just stop drafting that kind of guy. If you don't believe you can make that player work, then stop drafting that kind of player. And the other part of it, Fred, is like, tell me who the best top line, contending center who's under 6 feet tall. Like, there's not many of them. Jack Hughes is probably the best example of that, but he's not somebody that I think is, overly impressive in terms of winning in the playoffs. He had a miserable tournament, the Four Nations face-off. I understand that's a very small sample size, but he's the kind of player that if he's not scoring, he's not making an impact. And the Bruins, for better or worse, will stress the two-way game. So get a bigger center who can compete in the two-way game. And so that's where I land with this pick. Get a center. I love Anton Frondell. If they can get him, I'm very happy with that. I even love Caleb De Noye because he competes. He's a guy that kind of projects as, if he hits his ceiling, he's more like Sean Couturier, I'll take Sean Couturier on the Boston Bruins. And I think the Boston Bruins would take Sean Couturier. I just think, like, they're not going to change their philosophy. That they are who they are, right? And so if they believe that way, draft a player that fits that versus drafting someone who doesn't fit that and then wasting a whole bunch of time trying to make that player something that they are not.
Okay, does this draft have like a can't miss stud in it? Like, if they were to somehow get the number one pick, is there a guy that could change the future of the franchise?
Yeah, change the franchise might be strong, but Michael Misa is probably the closest thing you're going to get to like a sure thing. Just an electric scorer. I think he had like 60 goals in 60 games in the OHL. A sure thing in terms of a scorer. People say that Porter Martone is also a pretty good guy, like pretty good can't miss kind of guy. He's a 6'3" winger. He plays a bit like a Brady Tkachuk. Now those players can sometimes be boom or bust at the NHL level, but people like his results and think he can, be a high impact player. But I would say that the closest thing to like a sure thing in this draft, up front, would be Michael Misa. On the back end, Matthew Schaefer is supposed to go first overall. He is a very productive defenseman. Could be, but I don't know if the Bruins need another defenseman. I think they need a forward, namely a center, more than the defenseman.
You draft for need over best player available.
I mean, I would, because if you're the Bruins, like, you kind of keep hitching your wagon to the idea of a center becoming available and you signing or acquiring them. And so far, that has led to Elias Lindholm. Like, Barkov didn't hit the market. Draisaitl didn't hit the market. Crosby didn't even hit the market. So now, do you want to cling to the idea that Jack Eichel's going to leave Vegas, next summer? Like, you could, but I don't think it's a sure thing. And you're kind of proving that you can't hitch your wagon to that. So the only way to get a top-line center is through the draft, in my opinion. And, the fifth overall pick or the first overall pick, like, I don't see a better scenario in which you're going to acquire that kind of player.
Ty, do you think this draft is more important than any other for Don Sweeney? Like, is there any reason to believe that his job is in actual jeopardy and that he needs to pay extra special attention this time around?
Well, I think the simplest way to break it down, Hardy, is like he is being given a second chance at 2015. If you look at 2015, like, they were set up to be like loaded. You got 3 first-round picks, you had 3 second-round picks, you had an extra first-round pick in 2016. Like, you had draft capital out the wazoo, and you blew it. You made terrible picks. I don't think you have anybody to show for what you had in 2015 with those 6 picks in the top 60. And so that's a problem. He nailed the deadline, in my opinion. I thought Don Sweeney had a great deadline.
Yeah.
But now comes the hard part. You got to make the picks. You got to pick the right players. You got to rebuild the pipeline, and you got to, like, this is a potential draft that could, to your point, completely reshape the trajectory of the franchise long term. It's just, you got to nail the picks. And there are some guys here too. Like they have 2 second-round picks, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to parlay one of those picks and maybe a player on their roster to move up. If there's a player they really like at the end of the first round or early second round, there's a lot solid right shot D that could be had here if you're the Boston Bruins.
Okay. One last question. Your audio got a little weird there, but I want to ask you one last question.
I know I saw it on the mic. It said my mic switched for some reason. Sorry about that.
You're right back. No problem. What do you buy Cam Neely's that Sweeney got the job too close to that draft where they had the 3 picks in a row and that's why he screwed it up?
Buy it? No. I will say that as an assistant GM, your job is not scouting. Like, your job is the day-to-day operations of the Providence Bruins. And so he was not involved in a lot of these scouting things and whatnot. And he was never, and people keep saying he was director of scouting. He was never director of scouting. Like that was not his job title. He never had that job title. I don't know where that came from. Yes, he worked in player development in terms of like on ice at, back then it was Rastusha, during their development camps, but he was never the director of scouting for the Boston Bruins. So I will say that is his excuse. Like, you were the AGM, which worked in Providence, not in Boston, not in amateur scouting. At the same time, though, you're the team president, Cam. You can overrule your new GM and say, hey, hold on, let's go to the table here. So why didn't you? I think the 2015, like, there's no sense in the Bruins relitigating the 2015 draft. It was a disaster. It was not great. And at the same time, I do think that us as fans, as media, as whatever, we got to let it go. It ain't changing. No one is bringing any new information or rationale to any of the topics. You know, like Cam Neely talked about the 2015 draft like 4 years ago now. I don't know why he reopened that can of worms. And yes, the drafting has been poor. And I think that Cam got kind of suckered into the narrative in that argument, that little spat with Dupes, because like he focuses on 2015. Their drafting has been poor beyond 2015. Like 2016, they take Trent Frederick, who's a third liner. 2019, they take Johnny Beecher, who's a fourth liner. Like their drafting issues go beyond just 2015, right? And so they have a 3-year window, Fred. I believe it's from, I want to say 2017 to 2019, where they have nothing outside of Jeremy Swayman. And Jacob Lauko. They have nothing to show for their drafting, which is just brutal. And that's what undid Chiarelli by the end. The Bruins had a 3-year window there where they got just nothing out of any of their draft picks, and that's what ultimately led to the Bruins' demise and led to Peter Chiarelli being fired in 2015. And so, you know, like I said earlier, guys, like they're gonna get a chance to redo 2015. They gotta nail it this time, though. They gotta get at least, I think, 2 or 3 high impact players out of these next couple of drafts if you're the Boston Bruins.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. For more Bruins analysis and opinion, hit this playlist.